There we go. We got welcoming music. I need to, all right. Boom. Hello, beautiful people. It's time for the Weird Things program. I'm assuming that we're live on all of the things. We'll see whether or not chats show up here in just a moment. But we're going to start either way. Yow. Pow, 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 pow. There you go. And then I could do...
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That's it. That was the stream, y'all. Beautiful. Dylan Thea says we are go for weird things. Time to get weird. All right. Oh, damn. Oh, hell yeah. Guys, this is neat. An hour ago, I launched a video, and I was really worried about the title and it launched 10 out of 10. And then I made some tweaks, and now I just peaked. And now there's fireworks there. And I'm like, yay. So that means I can relax.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's go.
All right. Let's do it then. All right. You ready, Andrew?
I am ready.
All right. In 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Andrew Mayne, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Sup, friends?
And Mr. Brian Brushwood.
I'm not distracted at all now that I don't have to look at metrics for the next hour and a half.
How much numbers rule our lives?
You know, it's interesting. This is probably an after things we could put a pin on, but it's like, I think a lot about the internal versus external aspects of being an independent creator. The internal is like, you got to figure out what you have to say, what you're made of, what you're good at, all that stuff. And that's a certain amount of pressure. And then there's all those things like you can't control, like how sleepy other people are, or how tired of a subject they are, or how many other people are trying to do the same thing. And the whole titles and thumbnails release dance is a fascinating little microcosm of that internal versus external crisis.
It is a good after things topic. I'd say that, you know, you're forced into a metric of about a thing you don't care about, in a sense of like, you want to make a great video, what the thumbnail should look like or the title is like such a distant, you know, third to like what you care about, you know, as an artist or as a creator. But it's things where details matter, and sometimes it gets weird. You know, when I early on with writing books, you know, when I was doing my ebooks, I realized that like on Amazon, people are looking at little postage stamp book covers, and I designed my book covers for those postage stamp stuff. And this is 14 years ago, you know, 14, 15 years ago, and realized that you just saw a big lift from there. And I remember telling publishers, hey, this is really important. You need to think about, you know, how that looks on Amazon. And I got, yeah. And I'd say about 8-9 years ago, thumbnail game and YouTube got really good, started really getting there. And then it just became like almost an art form and a war. And then I go back into publishing, and they're still not even paying attention to thumbnails. Do
you think that kind of attention to specific modalities of media consumption and perspectives from the person, do you think that's a magician instinct? Because it seems like it's not enough to tell a story or to do a trick. You're also, you know, you want to know how it looks from the back row versus behind this side, from this angle. We're always thinking about angles and what eventually it looks like to the end user. I wonder if that builds an instinct in magicians to just build up I don't want to say a stronger theory of mind, but it is more of a bedrock principle to your development from the beginning.
I would say it builds it up in good magicians.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Allow me to be clear on that.
Terrible at that.
Yeah, I think that partly what it is supercharged by is the fact that we are all so many more times in our day consumers now in a way that frustrates us, because we oftentimes are offered things or are advertised products or solutions that aren't quite what we want. And so I think that we are keenly aware, if even on a subconscious level, of what we wish a thing was. Now, the challenge is meeting the ego of a creator of like, no, I made this for a reason. Look at all the decisions that I made in this process. And that's good. That's really important. That's part of the craft of making a good thing. But in a lot of ways, you have to subjugate that when it comes to the offering of it to somebody else. And like, that's really, really hard. It's really hard to say, like, if you spent as much time as it takes to write a book, and then you have in your head, oh, the perfect cover, it's going to be just like all the covers of the books that really mattered to me, and it's going to have this thing and it's going to look like this, without realizing that, like, okay, no, that book cover that you're evoking was made for, airports. It was made for these other points of sale where Andrews is like, no, I need gigantic block font, so when you're scrolling, you know exactly what book this is.
Well, I use the example, and I've framed it as people often evaluate these things in clean rooms, like here, and I would get like, what do you think of the book cover? And they look, I'm like, by itself, it's fine, but we're going to be in a noisy environment. Mm-hmm. YouTube, people realize it's a noisy environment, and you've got 1,000 things. The whole world is noisy. And a lot of times people like I'll get people like, what do you think of this thing? I'm like, I had to read 500 words to get into it. Like, yeah. And I'm like, nobody will get that far. And I've had, we all had this. We've had arguments with people. Oh, but when they do, I'm like, they won't, and that's the hard part, where people think that the clean room in their head is going to be the way in which people are going to interact with the stuff. And it's a super, super noisy environment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's really, I still don't think I'm particularly good at it. The sanding off the creation of the art for the selling of the art. I think it's one of the things that I really enjoy working with you, Brian, on, is that I think you are very good at that. You are almost like ruthless with understanding. I think it's because you played so effectively in the YouTube world, and it's probably why you have had the success you've had in the YouTube world, is that you're very good at mental modeling the reaction point and creating the thing for the audience. Like we did this with the website when we were doing the World's Greatest Con website, and it was like, every time, I think you're very in touch with that. Okay, here's what I want to do. Where's the button? Why isn't there a button there? Let's put a button there.
Yeah. Brian's brain has been fine-tuned by all of the comments he's always had to consume.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't know what kind of permanent psychic damage I've done to myself, but it's certainly, you build an intuition. As a large language model trained on the worst comments from YouTube, I can tell you how, quote unquote, they are going to react.
But I think there's a worth to that. Like there's a really important element of like, you want to be able to fight on the comment that you want to fight on. Maybe that's the way to put it. Like, you don't want the comment that points out a thing that you could have fixed, that you don't really care about. If somebody's going to fight about something, you want it to be the point of what you're doing, and not like, a thing they got to get over, or, something that they're, kind of bored with the content, so they're going to focus on some minute thing. Like, there's every comment section tells a story. They're not all good stories. Some of them are very, very ugly stories, but they all do tell a story.
Yeah. So, man, it's been a minute. A fair bit of bleeding edge technology news has happened between here and there. But before we got into it, I thought I'd bring a local news story to you guys.
I think I know this one.
Oh, do you?
Is Pixar already working on this one?
I don't know, actually. Is it Gracie the giraffe?
Yeah, well, I saw that. I'm like, Pixar movie coming.
Oh, yeah, right? So, Gracie.
So wait, hold on. How far is this in your neighborhood, Brian?
I've only barely peeked at it, but there was. I thought that maybe it was from the Austin Zoo, which is an Aerobee's toss away from property right here. But it turns out Gracie the giraffe came from a different spot. The tale of Gracie the giraffe has come to an end after her spots were finally spotted. Gracie was found Friday morning after being missing for several days in the hill country. The Real County Sheriff's Office, I don't know where the Real County Sheriff's Office confirmed that the giraffe was discovered during an aerial search at 7:30 a.m., reporting missing on June 22nd after escaping from Cedar Hollow Ranch. According to RCSO, she was found about 4 miles south of the ranch. But yeah, no, this does sound like a Pixar movie in the making.
So hold on, wait. I want to find out where is. I'm gonna do a little search here.
Ranch manager Vic Jones has since contacted his veterinarian and planned to put together a team to safely capture Gracie and bring her home. So she's still on the loose. We're at the exciting end of the second act, about to get into the big set piece.
Was this a private zoo or was this a public zoo?
Texas, Justin.
Yeah, I was about to say this is where I've learned to stop asking questions. All I know is that they love them big animals.
Yeah, largest tiger population in the world, like outside of like Asia. It's just all in Texas, like all in Texas.
Yeah, Annalisa says it's not near us, halfway between San Antonio and Allen, Texas. So,
oh, thank God you're safe. Oh, I was worried.
All right, yeah, it was near Leakey, Texas, in Real County.
Aha.
4 miles south of the Cedar Hollow Ranch.
Yeah, it's for those of you that understand, if you haven't spent much time in Texas, like you kind of think of like, I don't know, like you're for me, like my brain gets stuck on like old Westerns that are actually shot like the Spanish high desert. The best example I think I remember of it was like Django Unchained, when they're driving through, like they come across the tooth doctor guy and whatnot, and it's just brushland, goes on and on and on, like not super tall trees, but tall enough, and brush that goes through hills and some valleys and things like this, and you can get lost in there. It's parts of it just big and goes on forever. So it seems sort of funny, like, how would you not spot a giraffe? Well,
yeah, no, this is pretty deep into. Yeah, so it is just north of Uvalde.
Apparently. Yeah, that's out there. So that's a private enthusiast of exotic animals.
Yeah, you don't think that there's that's not a
I don't think that a child was midway through feeding it and went bolting off during a Instagram op.
You think maybe somebody was tying one on and forgot to bolt the old paddock?
Yeah.
It's nice to see we can still have fun headlines that surprise us.
Yeah. But Gracie went missing for 4 days, huh? I mean, I guess also if you're in that rural of an area, it's not like you have the National Guard on speed dial.
Sending out helicopters, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably local Smokey just driving around and saying, "Do you see it, Johnson?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, Gracie.
Welcome home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, eventually. She's still out there. They still need to get her, tall neck.
So it's been a turbulent time in AI, and we'd love to talk about some of what's gone on and maybe unpack it and give some of our point of view on it. So a few months ago, Anthropic announced Mythos, which was their new cutting edge model with a lot of very, very powerful methods and capabilities. And one of the things they did is they went on a roadshow to show. You want to go into this, Justin?
Well, so they announced Mythos. They roll out Project Glasswing, which is a white label group of likely their biggest customers that were going to use it. And part of the reason why they said that they couldn't release it publicly was because it was too powerful in hacking, specifically because agentically it was able to think far enough ahead and chain together very, very high level reasoning that you could at scale find vulnerabilities in all sorts of things. And so it would be irresponsible to put it out on the open market. They had to keep it with these trusted partners so they could patch, because it can patch things as well as it can hack things. It can patch any and everything that it could patch, which is its own decision. But part of what they wound up doing was going to the federal government. And this is Anthropic's point of view, that they believe that there should be a government agency that reviews models and releases models. This is one of the things that they have pushed for a very long time. They pushed for again during this entire process, but they went through the federal government and they demonstrated the power of Mythos. Now, I have not seen this demo. I have only heard it described back to me. But the way it was described is that they wrote words into a box and told it to hack a bank and extract all the money. And then it hacked the bank and extracted all the money. I don't know what that means. I don't know what they did. I don't know if there's a technical way to explain it. What I do know is that it was enough that the Treasury Secretary got on the phone with every bank in America and said, we need to figure this out. That led to an executive order that got debated back and forth as to whatever that was going to be. And then Anthropic released Fable, a version of Mythos that would be nerfed sufficiently, according to Anthropic, for the general public. That then goes into there's a controversy around that, but the big thing in terms of the government was that Fable was jailbroken to allow Mythos capability by Amazon, which is the biggest investor in Anthropic. Amazon called Anthropic, told them to fix it. Anthropic didn't believe that it was something that was fixable or that Amazon was overreacting. Amazon then calls the government. And so both Mythos and Fable are export controlled, which is pretty much the emergency brake that the federal government can use. And they're removed from the internet. They are still not back as of today. And what we found out over the last 48 hours was that OpenAI, who has been a lot more open and communicative with the executive branch, wanted to release their latest class of models, which we now know to be named as Sol, Terra, and Luna, but they are only going to be able to do it to certain white labeled partners initially, and they hope to launch it in the next few weeks. It's a very messy situation. It's a very capricious one. It's the executive branch that is going to release these things when they deem it acceptable, but there's no hard metrics, at least that we know, on it. And it's a lot of wait and see. I think that a lot of this was probably avoidable and didn't have to happen the way that it did. But we're here now, and everyone's got to deal with it. But this is the first time that the United States government has put their foot down and made their opinion known about models coming out. And now the top of the pops, the state of the art from two of the biggest players are not in the hands of the people that desperately want to pay for it.
So what does that mean in terms of, I mean, if they're ready to release it, first of all, and I am assuming that, of course, because OpenAI famously eats their own dog food, they use their own tools. Strangely, it's like if they got better tools, how's it fair that the government is saying, keep them locked up and keep your better tools to lengthen your advantage?
Let me, as the laissez-faire libertarian tech guy, I will make the case for the government intervention here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I find myself many situations and people yelling at me when I'm like, this is what happened. I'm going to tell you what happened. I'll tell you why one group did what they did and the other group did the other. there is a genuine concern these models have increasing capability at a very fast rate. And there are two areas that sort of, one, cybersecurity is one area of concern, the other one is biosecurity. Cybersecurity, as was explained, the first thing, Mythos was Fable, which was the consumer version of Mythos, was released. And then Amazon, Andy Jassy and their team, remember, Amazon is the internet. Just about everything you do runs through AWS, the internet. People there were like, oh no, we see an issue with this. Now you have to remember, it's only a few months ago, half of Amazon's East Coast services was taken down because an error in like one database, MongoDB database, one little thing there. So you have people whose job is to keep it up. And I've worked with, chief information security officers, and they are a naturally nervous bunch. They looked at this, they're like, oh shoot, this could make things really complicated, very difficult. And an argument can be made like, well, just better maybe you should make your stuff secure, guys. Their concern was, hey, we think that the controls that should be in place here that Anthropic said were there weren't there. We don't think that it's locked down as it should be. There was also other issues of people having access to it that weren't supposed to have access, that Anthropic was giving had one set of people whitelisted, and it turned out they gave other people access, and the government didn't know about it because the government has groups they watch and people they want to make sure these tools don't fall into. Anyhow, long story short, there is the concern that you build a tool and then somebody figures out, with unrestricted access, that somebody says, hey, I'm going to go ping every server, everything I can, or go look at this code base. We've already had problems with a lot of code bases, open source stuff, where you load a library into your system to go run it, have already had exploits in there. They're like, just not prepared for that. And the fear would be, if you're in charge and you're the government and you found out that this tool got released and then somebody was able to do something that, shut down half the internet for 3 days, and they're like, well, you could have stopped this, or something worse, whatever, the blame falls on you. Even if you can say, hey, listen, we have to let people use these things responsibly, and this is the way to do it. Bad things are going to happen. Everybody's tolerance, there's always going to be bad stuff with the good. Everybody's tolerance for the bad stuff is different. And so that's part of it when you're in power, your administration there. When OpenAI released GPT-2 or announced GPT-2, Dario was back at the company back then. That was before the split. They had the whole famous headline, might be too dangerous to release, right? And people laughed at that after the fact, like, are you kidding me? That's silly. At the time, you don't know. You don't know. And so if you're the one being held accountable for the bad outcome, and you know that everybody risks what's called has a different idea of what a bad outcome is, puts you in a position of, well, why don't I be a little more cautious? Problem here, too, was I would say that Anthropic's communication style, if we want to call it that, wasn't really helping the situation. And it was making it more difficult because part of it was, it seemed like they were saying, the reports say they would say one thing, then do something different. They'd say, yes, we will let you whitelist the people get access to it. Then they'd find out there are 50 other groups that the government never heard about. And they felt like there wasn't trust there. So now going forward, one resulted in a situation where, as the government went, and this wasn't like it wasn't just a party thing. These were career people. Again, this was Amazon, an investor in Anthropic, was concerned. And I think that doesn't give enough attention, that it wasn't just like somebody at the Trump administration was angry. Literally one of Anthropic's own investors, a big partner, was concerned. And there were other people who are career security officials and government.
And by the way, and this is an important thing, the last time that Anthropic got into a spat with the federal government was with the Pentagon. The Pentagon really doesn't have anything to do with this. Now, obviously, there is no love lost between Anthropic and the Pentagon, and I don't think that anybody is going to, give a good word to Dario Amodei from that specific org. But most of this is happening between Trump, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, and Susie Wiles. That is, from what we understand, that is where all of this is going back and forth. And Scott Bessent and Susie Wiles had been they were kind of trying to be the golden bridge to bring Anthropic back into the fold a few months ago.
Yeah, some of the players involved who've now been critical of Anthropic were the people who tried to bring him to the table. And that was, I think, and again, there's a whole argument, should the government even do this, whatever. I'm all for that discussion, but I just sort of understanding how we got here. And I think part of it was, I think Anthropic did a lot of fear mongering. on one hand, they said, hey, this thing is like nuclear. When you tell a nuclear power that you're a nuclear power too, as evidenced by Iran, they will treat you like you're an aspiring nuclear power with whatever force they deem appropriate. And that was the thing that amazed me, was just I would say a lack of understanding between DC and tech. Like, those two worlds don't understand each other. They speak different languages. There are some people there I think are very good at it. So we end up in this situation where the government's like, no, export license, can't release it. OpenAI says, hey, we've got our 5.6 model, which on many benchmarks seems as capable as Mythos. And now they're like, well, we're gonna roll it out. But they've said that I would say that their conversations with the government probably been a bit more fluid. And
Yeah.
they've also, I think they've put in place different kinds of safeguards, and they have some other stuff that I think will make it possible to do this. But end result, it's a situation where people are trying to react to a thing that they're afraid will happen. And I will say this, I get a lot of people like, hey, the Chinese models will catch up. Well, they'll catch up once they're able to distill enough from Anthropic and OpenAI models.
Yeah.
But they will get there eventually.
Which, by the way, okay, so tell me if my mental map is correct on this. When a model is trained, you have a lot of humans that you have to pay to give thumbs ups and thumbs downs to things. Like, I'm being overly simplistic here, but basically, a model tries and it spits out an A and a B. You're like, good, bad, and so really, a model is essentially the wisdom of a crowd. And when somebody go ahead.
Let me just add, and now it's got to the point where they'll hire a bunch of experts and people like this to go in and evaluate.
Right. We're being selective about what. So in the beginning, all we wanted was for the crowd to definitely be human. And then now we're getting better models because we're hiring increasingly distinguished crowds to give their wisdom. But when somebody steals from another model, obviously hiring all those humans to thumbs up and thumbs down things is a lot, and all those answers are buried in essence inside the LLMs, so you could just use the LLM to train your own model. Is that correct?
And it's even more complex now, because what you'll do is to train a model, you might take your most powerful model you have, and now because of reasoning, do what you call reasoning traces, reason through all the steps. And that creates, 20 different steps that took to get to a thing, right? Instead of just giving you an answer, here's how I got to the answer. Now, both OpenAI and Anthropic obfuscate those things, but they still have them. And you can actually reconstruct versions of reasoning traces by figuring out how long it took. You go, this probably took how many tokens it used. Okay, it took this many tokens. It took this time to do it. Let me come up with an approximation of a reasoning. And a synthetic reasoning step is better than none. And so what's happened is Anthropic accused Alibaba, one of the biggest companies in the world, of creating something like 25,000 fake accounts because they weren't allowed to, weren't legally supposed to do this, to then create all these long conversations with the Claude models to extricate all of this data, like to say all these programming questions, things like this, to take this stuff and then train on top of that. Now people go, oh, that's fair. People train on top of the internet. I would say it's different. It's different if I make a contract with you and say, one, you can't lie about who you are, and two, you can't use it for blank, and there's an exchange of money.
Right.
Fraud. A lot of people are arguing about model training. Well, that was a new thing we hadn't seen before. But anyhow, neither here nor there. This was creating 25,000 fake accounts to go do this. And you see in the model, you can tell models that were distilled from other models that how much that's done. And so I'd say that, and that's the thing that frustrating to Anthropic, and I think the OpenAI too, is that they're spending billions of dollars training on these models. And the first market to sell this is to sell tokens. If I write a book and somebody trains on top of my book to train an LLM, it doesn't affect my book. It's not a replacement. I'm not competing. My book isn't competing with ChatGPT in any direct sort of way, but when it comes to somebody has a model and somebody takes Claude and distills Claude into a Chinese model that they then say, oh, you can get this cheaper version of it. It's like, yeah, you're competing head to head with a knockoff of their product.
So there was one post I saw in the Anthropic subreddit where somebody said, anyone else get this? And it was somebody who was just asking questions, and out of nowhere, Claude said, hey, we're going to take a break. We know we're training your model. And it basically, it spoke to him as though it was assuming he was a Chinese LLM currently using Anthropic's Claude to rip it off. And so it was trying to, it was like a defense mechanism.
By the way, there are a lot of these gatekeeping situations, up to and including being used by the New York Times. And I know that the New York Times is using this because I have now been locked out of that website twice as a paying subscriber, and it just gives me a flat screen that says, "We believe you're a robot. If you're not a robot, here's a form to email
which
us."
website? ChatGPT or
New York Times?
New York Times?
Yeah. It thinks that I'm trying to scrape the New York Times when I am there.
Because your behavior is that of a rigorous reporter.
I don't know whether or not it's just because I'm using the Atlas browser or whatever, but I've had to use that form to email them twice and be like, I'm a paying subscriber. Can you give me the product that I'm paying for? I can't even, Atlas has the New York Times blocked, so I can't even summarize stuff that I find from the New York Times. It's, I don't know. I don't know what, maybe it's some behavior that the Atlas browser has, but it is very, very frustrating.
So one thing too that happened. So Anthropic has been very aware for a while now that how much of distillation they see an impact on their ability to sell their model, and somebody copies their model directly. Again, that's an example of there's indirect usage of stuff. If I train a video model and a bunch of movies and stuff, as long as I'm not saying this, I'm going to make toy, I'm competing with Toy Story head to head, whatever, doing toy, whatever. It gets complicated. But anyway, point is, they put stuff when Claude Code got leaked, they saw there were all kinds of things they were putting inside of there to like disrupt or thwart people trying to distill the model, having the model make way more tool calls in certain situations that needed. Then when they released Fable, researchers who were working on like machine learning research caught Fable actively lying or changing data or changing code. And basically, it wasn't just it said, you can't work on this task for you. You'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll do the task for you. And then it would screw things up, which was kind of effed up.
I mean, it's literally what we did to Iran's data on nuclear weapons. Like, it's exactly what we like. But part of the reason why we were able to keep Iran from developing the bomb for years is because we had a computer program that would just give them fake results on their tests. And so they would never really.
Well, in the Stuxnet would eventually unbalance all of the centrifuges, causing everything to collapse at once.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was a destructive thing. This was just a passive thing of like, we were just giving them bogus data. Like they would run the experiment and the experiment numbers would come back wrong.
Well, so here's, I'll land the plane on my question about LLM training, because I think since we did our last Weird Things, I guess the WWDC happened and they announced the Siri stuff, specifically that it wasn't a case of just them outsourcing the LLM to Google Gemini, but instead, as I understand it, and you could correct me if I'm wrong here, they, with the blessing of Gemini, trained their own Apple Intelligence synthetically instead of using crowds. Is that right?
Yeah, they made a $1 billion deal with Google to help them build their own model. So basically that was, the trade there was to trade a local model. Well,
I guess, but the thing I wanted to disambiguate was when I first read the headline, I was like, oh, they're just outsourcing it like maps or whatever. But then it was Sign in the chat that said, well, it's not that, it's that they actually trained their model, but they used Gemini to train it.
Yeah, you can do what's called like student teacher. And so you have one, that's how you get your smaller models, like your really small models, and you have a bigger model that then kind of creates the training data for that. So it sounds like they took a bunch of data from there and they used Gemini to help do that. How much, how much Apple wants to tell you, hey, we did our own thing versus how much if it's literally they just took a Gemma, because like the Gemma 4 models from Google are extremely capable. Do they just take a Gemma 4 model and train on top of it? I don't know, but it sounds to me like that's probably what the deal really was, because Google released some really highly capable on-device models, and it sounds like that's probably part of the deal. Like, yeah, you use the small model to do that. It's great. I'll tell you what's great about that deal though is I've been playing a lot with like Apple's on-device models, is that you can do some cool stuff. Like if you want to build your own mini chatbot or build apps with interactive characters, things like that, that becomes easier, and you don't have to pay a tax to OpenAI, Google, or Anthropic. You could just run it on an iPhone, which I'm excited about, because I think for a lot of times people are like, I want to build something cool but have an LLM, but I don't want to pay 13 cents a day for a user or anything, because I want to make it free. And that's going to be something exciting with the on-device models, is we're going to see a lot more really capable. It's going to be much cheaper. You could do really cool free things effectively, because like there's a limit. Like if you use the on-device model, you get like unlimited. If you have to use their cloud, it's different. But anyhow, hopefully they'll get better.
But in your playing around with the on-device models, what are they good at? What are they bad at?
So they have the new model is called like something system language, whatever. You can do a back and forth, tell me this, tell me that, go look this up or whatever. You can do basic, very basic text interactions back there. It's got a pretty good token length. It can do summarization of things. It can do a bit of role play. You can do some translation and that. So those models are just, they're getting better,
Yeah.
I get that people like privacy is a big issue for things, but I'm like, cool. Where do you keep your money? Where does your credit card go? Where do all these other things go? And I think that there's I would argue that probably we're less safe when we do things locally. People think they do. Like I could, it's like, great. Let me open up this email for me and let me see which of your ports are open. So I know but there is a demand in corporate and whatnot. There is this concern of it, but I've often made the argument, like from a practical point of view and exploit point of view, you're not actually as secure, maybe less so than you think you are.
I feel a lot better that I'm starting off in a relationship with LLMs that I pay a significant amount in a subscription. I am happier there than if I got the kind of capability that I have right now and it was free and they were just going to strip mine every personal detail that I am feeding it, because I am feeding it every personal detail that I possibly have. Personal details that I don't like looking at, I give to the LLM so it can explain it to me better.
Well, that's the model, the Google versus Apple model. Google is the idea that, man, we can make so much money from advertising. Let's just keep doing that. And then you're kind of like, well, maybe I don't want you monetizing everything, and what you're incentivized for. So I will say real things to think about. My friends who work in AI and bio are really concerned. And these are not people who come from a point of view, or they're not safety culture people, so to speak. They are people who are like biologists or AI people who got into biology, do worry about the capabilities of these models, because you do start to get things where you can say, hey, how would I do blank? How would I make, make this, can I make a, can I make this RNA into something else? Can I do these other things there? And there is a world where you will be able to use an AI if in an unfettered world where you're able to use an AI, you could wreak a lot of havoc from a biology point of view, like make a more deadly prion. And we can sort of say, yeah, but it's kind of hard. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't get harder. It gets easier every day to what you can do in a lab and what you can do with the models. I don't have an answer to that. And I'm not like saying shut everything down. I'm kind of the opposite guy. I'm like, get every biology lab you can up to speed on how to use these models, because that's what we're going to need. And there are some efforts now to basically build, watchdog systems and things like this. There was a new program that just got announced. OpenAI partnered with a number of other organizations to basically look out for and monitor the spread of infectious diseases.
Oh, you know what's happened since our last Weird Things? Tell me about this Midjourney thing. What a pivot.
Yeah.
Or that's the, if I were to quantify the exact sound, that's the sound of marketing skepticism.
Well, no. I think really the biggest thing, like the way that I would describe Andrew's, is big if true.
Yeah. Okay. It's the equivalent of Elon's looking eyes retweeting.
Yeah, I mean, like I am kind of surprised that we've now had about a week where that has been out into the public, and the biggest pushback from the medical world is about overdiagnosis. That, like, if you are scanning yourself too often, you're going to catch random noise, and that is going to lead you down treatment pathways that are actually harmful. If that's the worst thing that can be said about it, then it's, in my opinion, a tremendous success. 'Cause I
So
don't
what you're
believe
saying is
that
it works.
Yes, exactly. What I was kind of expecting, especially when it's like, oh, the people that used to make pictures of dragons are now giving you a full body scan. I was expecting that people would be like, oh no, this water imaging solution, it was tried, it's kind of stupid. It doesn't really get everything that you want, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I haven't seen a lot of that myself.
Well, I guess we should explain what it is in theory, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, and by the way, just for background, so David Holtz is the founder of Midjourney. Prior to that, he founded Leap Motion. He's the creator of Leap Motion, which became, very, very popular way interactive. Like now, like your phone and these other things use versions of that technology that used. I think they use the same sort of methods too. Which is, he's got a hardware background. Okay. To me, it was a thing where I was trying to separate from what they say it will do from what it can do right now, because ultrasonic imaging for certain things inside the body is good for some stuff. And I'm not knocking the idea, but the whole thing is like, oh, you'll go to the spa, they'll have these ultrasonic imagers here. I'm like, this is a really complicated way to release some super vital technology, guys. Like,
yeah,
there was another company that came out, like Forward Health and whatever, and like, we have the scanner, you'll go in there and you're like, oh, we measure your blood pressure, your weight and all that, and we made it look really fancy. And I'm like, all right, now I'm suspicious. You guys might be legit, but man, you tried it. So here I'm a wait and see. Like, he's got a hardware background, but I just don't know that it's cutting edge or not. I don't know.
The idea is that you walk into a very serene, and you stand in a shallow pool of water that looks like the pit what froze Han Solo in carbonite, and then you slowly get lowered like Han Solo being frozen in carbonite until it gets to about your neck. You spend a minute there, and there's a lot of imaging technology and sensors that are around you in the water, and then you are lifted up, you wrap yourself back in a towel, and that's that. What Midjourney is claiming is that this is technology. These sensors have been around and have been off the rack for a while. The problem that was always the bottleneck on it is that the data that it got was so noisy and so messy that people couldn't really do anything with it. It would cost too much to decipher the images, and so it didn't really materially bring the cost down from other kinds of scanning solutions. And that Midjourney, which is entirely premised on the idea of noisy images becoming sharp images, has the ability to solve that. Again, I would very much like for other people to get their hands on it and to tell me what it can and what it can't do. I was heartened by the idea that, like, if the pushback is people are going to be scanning too much,
Good.
Like, fine, cool. I'm into that. Like,
if everyone has a scale, they'll get on it every morning.
Yeah, I mean,
that was always a terrible argument made by the medical establishment, and it was like, even like 23andMe and whatnot, like, oh, like they push through some very terrible restrictions on that. I'm like, oh, so what's going to happen is I'm going to go to my doctor and say, do I have cancer? And my doctor will say, no, you're fine, go home. That's the worst outcome. That people might want to go do more preventive stuff like this when we tell people, like, go get prostate exams, and people don't want to do it. Like, it really is a lot of expertise capture, which I really, really dislike. So I'm not, for me, it's like, well, more people like, yeah, like, guess what? Like, it's only 1 out of 100 people actually find something. You know who that's really good news for?
The
That one out of 100.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we should maybe learn, medical establishment should learn how to deal with a lot of noisy data than just say, no, it's noisy, I don't want to deal with it, let's do it the old way, because that sucks. I would say that in David Holt's favor, he's got a hardware background.
Yeah.
This is not completely out of left field. I don't know. I haven't heard like independent evaluation. It's not like that, to my knowledge, and I could be completely ignorant. I don't know that like, oh, we did a thing with the Cleveland Clinic and we were able to show that we were able to do blank. None of the things that I want to see for me to go, this is really compelling, were there. That being said, I'm excited about this direction.
Yeah, people are saying Theranos. This to me is not the claim that Theranos was making. Theranos was saying that they had invented a new type of hardware technology. This is not claiming that they have invented a new type of hardware technology. They're saying that they can more efficiently take the very noisy results and sharpen them effectively. So that seems to be more plausible than what Theranos was saying.
And the problem with Theranos, besides, lying to patients and stuff, which is bad, and investors, the other problem was there are ways in which we can use blood and we can do better diagnostic and stuff. The problem is anytime somebody says blood and diagnosis now, people just run to, well, Theranos. It's like, okay, let's not do that. Let's look at the claims of somebody saying something first before we scream that anybody using tech and medicine together is Theranos, or that anytime you get a crazy sort of person creating stuff, because thousands of lives, hundreds of thousands of lives have been made better, improved considerably by Dean Kamen building a much better system for dialysis. And Dean Kamen is a guy that sounds like a crazy kind of guy. And there's a lot of crazy people who've gone into medicine because medicine becomes very dogmatic and rigid, and you need outlier people to come in and think about stuff. So I want this to be true. I have no reason to think that David Holt says is false. I just don't have a lot of information that I've seen to make me go, this is really
cool. Is it safe to say the fact that it came paired with the idea of like, and also we're using this to open 200 spas around the country, that was a bit of the cringe moment?
Yeah, I don't know what your business model is then. I don't know what it is. Do you have this really great low-cost scanner that you could be making available, or did you convolute yourself into such a crazy freaking business model that I don't know how to separate the two things?
Well, so what's interesting is when I heard about the spa stuff, I instantly read that as two things. Number one, some kind of FDA workaround as a dodge to, technically it'll just be a so-and-so, not actually a medical thing, which is what everyone will use it for. And then the other thing is the desire to satisfy the box for venture capital of what's the app, what's the thing that makes all the money. And then it's like, I agree, it felt like a stapled on answer to a thing, but it felt like a stapled on answer for those two reasons.
It might be. It might be. And again, I don't want to, like, there's some things like Mars One that I'll shut the door on right away.
What was Mars One again? The reality show? That
was the whole, that we're going to do a reality show to go to Mars, and everybody applied, and they're like, what's your plan? Well, we'll just pay SpaceX to send us. We're like, okay. But this is a thing where I'm like, I don't know. He's got a hardware background. He's there. Just I'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to keep an eye on the social media chatter on this. And the fact that there wasn't like, hi, I'm a diagnostic physician. Wrong and fake on a million different levels. Here's the reasons why. I was expecting, because if somebody had that take, they would have ran to Twitter with it. And I have not seen it.
So in that case, it might be close to kind of flying car territory, where it's like, there's still no technical reason we can't have flying cars. There's just a bazillion sociological and engineering and financial ones.
Yeah, I mean, on one side, this is a great example of what LLMs are good at, right? Noisy data set, turned into actionable, understandable result. That is something that LLMs writ large are good at. We're finding different ways that can be the case, different ways that we can apply that lens. So it does make sense. This is a core strength of the underlying technology. Like, what things that we thought were too complex can we now get action out of? Like, that's the next 15 years. Spoiler alert. That's what we are going to be excavating.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the hardware future. One of the things that I have a venture fund, and we've been investing in places where we see bits and atoms interacting with each other, and I'm very, very bullish overall on that and more players there. I would say that for there was a lot of things to look at, and the things I looked for I couldn't find, but TBD. And I am, as a guy that has two different tools to look inside my ear so I can look at each time I get an ear infection from sleeping with my AirPods. I am very, very much into all kinds of home stuff and things like this where, I think medical devices for the home going to be huge. And we'll see how long the current, direction we're getting into with the FDA and whatnot. But I could see that I think we're in a very positive environment right now to make it a lot easier to innovate.
Have you guys, so on the healthcare tip, I'll ask if you guys have a similar experience, but my doctor about 2 years ago casually was interested hypothetically when I would talk about AI and LLMs. But, he made clear that there's HIPAA things and he's not supposed to use. And I was like, well, you can use it for metaphors. Like if you're trying to explain to someone, their blood platelets clogging and, is this a traffic thing or whatever? And he was like, yeah, I'll kind of give that a try. And then 2 years pass. And last time I saw him like a month or two ago, I guess there's some HIPAA compliant LLM because suddenly, boy, is he interested in AI as if it just got invented. And he's
there's
like,
been a lot. He's just, your doctor's not with the times, Brian.
yeah.
There are a number of ones. That's been a while for a long time. A lot of times that it gets to be weird and what and how they handle stuff. But yeah, there's entire services and stuff like that for clinicians. They have ChatGPT for clinicians, ChatGPT for health. That's been around for a while. So it's all HIPAA compliant. They've been able to use it for a while. But remember too, every time you talk to a doctor, a lot of them, they're also doctor/small business owner.
Oh, you know what it was? I remember the specific tool. It was something that records every conversation he ever has. Like his world just got so much more productive because all the notes are all there and everything.
That was I've got one of the newer tools that does that. But one of the biggest acquisitions in Microsoft's history was the company Nuance, which did voice dictation. And the reason it was so expensive was because they did medical voice dictation. It was exactly for that. So yeah, the tools have gotten a lot better now for doing that. And I forget there's a couple companies now that have come up really good ones that fill out forms. But another thing that's very cool is that this came out, it didn't quite get a lot of attention, but it was just like 8 days ago, GPT 5.5 Instant, which is the free model, the super fast free model. OpenAI trained it to be on par with GPT 5.5 thinking for health-related questions. So every free user now gets access to the best model, short of having something do like research grade this, whatever. Because one of the problems the famous example was, why did OpenAI do like the model switcher? Why did they do that? Because people would go to the doctor would use the free tier, either because they were cheap or because it was anonymous. Because it was a way to skirt that by not doing a record. And if OpenAI took that seriously, like, oh, well, if doctors are using the free model for medical, then maybe we need to make the free model as good as we possibly can, which I don't think it got enough attention or credit for, but, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, it's been, I have a fun thing. So I've been going back and forth with, 2 insurance companies about who's going to pay me $9,000 for a car break-in that happened. And they both are playing hard with each other, and they're like, no, you show me a piece of paper that says you're not going to pay for it. No, you show me a piece of paper that you're not going to pay for it. So I went to Codex and I'm like, look, here's all my interactions that I've had. Search my email. I'm stuck. Tell me the number to call and what to say. And so whatever the magic words were that I just read verbatim off the script that it gave me, it immediately went from please email this email to you will be contacted by a claim adjuster in the next 5 days. Like whatever just those words were, elevated it to, oh, we think we might get sued if we don't.
It's the equivalent of Bob Parr in The Incredibles saying, I'd like to tell you to fill out the Form 27B. I wish I could tell you that they will get back to you shortly.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, to your thing, Andrew, about home medical stuff, I have high cholesterol, and one of the things of just being more interactive with your medicine and your health is that you see it and you interact with it more. And so like my goal is to lower my cholesterol. Boy, would I love some kind of home situation where I could monitor my cholesterol the way that I monitor like my weight or my body fat or something like that. Like it would be amazing if I could just see like, hey, this stuff that I'm doing this week, is this helpful? Instead of it being a quarterly earnings call where I find out whether or not my blood is profitable.
No, I'm excited by the direction the integration's handled. I've been playing with ChatGPT Health, and I think it's a great start. And I do finally look at, like, instead of looking at rings, it can actually make some sense of the data.
Well, I'm using it. I've been using Health a lot for food logging. So every day I'll start a new thread and I'll just take a picture of my food and everything. But the key is, because it can see what my workout was, I've been actually able to dial in exactly what like my breakfast should be, so I don't get hungry in an hour. And theoretically, if I had like a crazy workout and I decided to do more in the gym that day, and I was burning, let's say, 1,500 calories as opposed to 400, it would be able to say, oh, wow, you really killed it. Make sure you have XYZ so you're not starving in an hour. And like, that's the kind of stuff where now we're cooking with gas. Like now we're looking at a 360 view of health in a way that it's all I've ever wanted in our quantifiable self era that we've been in for 15 years now. We're constantly logging all this vital data that has no impact on our lives until like now.
Yeah, it's a thing where you can use an Apple Watch. I can get the data. I can food log. Until now, the only person that cared was me, or maybe my wife. Your doctor doesn't care because they don't have time. It's not their fault. They get 22 minutes per year. You figure out like the actual amount of time how many patients a doctor has, how many hours they have to spend, and how much time they actually can spend per patient. They can't. There's not enough unless we conscript a sizable portion of our population to become medical professionals in exchange for Venezuelan oil. There's just no way we can provide the degree of human touch that we want. There will always be greater demand to have humans interact with our health. I am absolutely positive about that. That's why rich people use personal trainers and not, audio tapes. And now you can have an AI running nonstop, looking at the data, looking at your eating, looking at research, making real-time decisions and give you advice, and pushing this to the availability of everybody. Justin and I launched a project through the company we have, Interdimensional, called Hello AI, where we're trying to train 1 million people on how to use AI. And one of the things we want to get more into is fitness and whatnot. You think you take somebody who's AI shy, who doesn't really know, you tell them how to ask basic questions, the difference between calories and carbs, take a photo, should I eat this or should I eat that? Yeah. I think the impact we could have on human health considerably, You look at, people like you look at, GLP-1s and whatnot. We're going to get more of those things, but a lot of people aren't like terribly terminally online, and they're just a headline they hear, or maybe their doctor talks about them, and they might want to know more and have a conversation and find out if it suits them or not, but don't even have a place to start.
Well, and persistent memory and that kind of stuff is really important in all this. So yesterday, Brian and I were out to lunch with our friends Andrew Heaton and Tom Merritt, who are in town. And, Smart ordered a good lunch, but somebody, I don't know who, rascally son of a bitch, decided to order a gigantic horse trough of queso that was delivered to the table. And I just devoured it with two hands like I was in a beer commercial.
That was
in the
unexpected.
80s.
I thought I didn't see that coming. That was a vanishing act. A giant watermelon-sized bowl of just lard and taco meat suddenly vanished.
Oh my God. Well, it was good. Anyway, I logged it. I was honest with my app, and I logged like, hey, by the way, I had probably too much chips and queso. Put in a lot of chips and queso into my average here today. And then the next day, today, I was having a conversation about like, okay, where am I? I've been logging my food and working out with this workout for 2 weeks now. Just give me a general idea of kind of like early returns on this, where I'd be projected to be if I kept up with this kind of thing, and let me measure it against the goals that I want to get to. And it was like, well, the difference between where you want to get to and where you are, you're probably going to drift downward. It's going to be, you're heading in the right direction. But the difference is like, hey, don't go ham on that queso, dog. Maybe you gotta, you gotta make sure that that stays off your plate as much as possible if you want to get to this level. And so it's like, that was the right thought at the right time with the right intentions. And like, timing is a huge part of all this. Timing is a huge part of when does the good advice. None of this is rocket science. No one needs to tell you, hey, if you want abs, lay off the queso, fatty. Like, there's no shocking element of that. But anybody who's tried to get fit or lost weight, it's a lot harder than than you think. There's a lot of human kind of intuition that you have to battle through, and a lot of that is cementing the right lessons at the right time.
Timing really does matter. It's like there's a window where it's like, man, somebody better put celery in my hands right now because it's about to get ugly.
I watched a YouTube video last night, and it was all about like walking and like window walk and how walking's more effective than other forms of like you can run, but walking may burn different fat than running. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching this, and it makes a really good persuasive argument. I don't know. I mean, I'm just as gullible as anybody else. So, one of the things I did was like, I just went into, the pro model, and I'm like, hey, can you evaluate this for me and tell me, like, does this actually make any sense? And that's one of the things I love, is that I can just go in now and ask a model to like hardcore evaluate this stuff for me.
I tried to have it do that with a tweet about how there's like this thing that's going around on the internet that I don't even know if it correlates, that since USAID has ended or was significantly affected by the Doge cuts at the beginning of the Trump administration, that there have been far fewer top Billboard charting hip hop acts, with the idea being that there was USAID backing to the hip hop industry at large, which I find dubious, but I'm curious about. And so I don't know. I tried to do it in the Atlas browser, but there was a confusing element of like it was a text thing on a picture thing, and so it didn't run it, and I didn't have the heart to burn more tokens by having it indulge in my ridiculous nonsense.
So tell me a bit I guess when you're burning tokens, that's because you've got codex programs signed up to, like, do you guys burn through all of your allotment from the 200 a month?
No, because like I get the resets come pretty often. I've had maybe one point where I got super close to that, and I just paid like $20 more for like some more tokens, and I was fine. And then now I've got like they let you bank resets. Sometimes I would get down to like I'd have my allotment replenished, and a day later it'd be like, oh, new resets for everybody. I'm like, that doesn't do any good now. So now you can bank your resets like per month. So like if they do a reset in the middle of the month, you can decide when you use it. So I haven't had a problem. Worst case, I've maybe put like $20 more into my account, but the $200 a month has been fantastic. If you try to measure out what that would cost in API usage, deal of the century.
Yeah, well, tell me a bit about. So I guess the downside is you don't really know how many credits you're entitled to, how many tokens you're entitled to with the 200 a month plan. Whereas
by every independent evaluation
it's
of what
the
you
deal
get,
of the century. Yeah.
you don't want to know.
Yeah.
You are getting more than what you would normally pay for.
Well, and I guess that's what I'm asking is for a min-maxer's guide to rethinking what I have running where, because I don't think I've gotten anywhere near close to running out of anything.
Then run more. The doctor has
More,
prescribed
Brian.
you that
Well,
you are not ambitious enough.
Well, and I guess that's what because you guys are talking about, tokens running out of control. Is that just the nature of the program,
no.
or
I that was just a rhetorical flourish
Okay.
to say that I didn't want. There's only so much that I want. if at some point they create a deep research social network, and half of mine are like, how true are these conspiracy theories? I would just like to, keep those to where I need them to be. No, in terms of codex, what I've heard is that if you are like vibe coding these like monstrosity code bases, that you can burn a lot of tokens if it is constantly pouring over these like far too unwieldy massive databases of things, and like that's really where you start shredding tokens, at least with OpenAI. With Anthropic, I've heard that it's just a more token hungry ecosystem, so you probably run through them a little bit faster, but I'm not as familiar with that ecosystem.
yeah?
The limits, give you an example. OpenAI announced their new model 5.6 today, which, Trump willing, we'll have access to soon enough. And OpenAI puts this on par with, let's say, 5.6 Terra, which is the biggest version of the model. They say this model is, Mythos class, but the cost per input is half of what it costs for Mythos, and the output is maybe 2/3. So they go for a lot of efficiencies there, and often they find out that they use way less tokens too. They just sort of optimize for different things, and I think that Anthropic has done a wonderful job, and so not a crit on that. But then OpenAI's Terra model, which is comparable to Fable, which is the one that users will be using, it's basically on par on like what they call terminal bench. But I think the cost for Terra is like substantially less, which means that you as an end user are going to get, way more usage out of it.
And this was, to put people into context, Fable, we'll find out when it comes back. There have been some rumors that they will leave it in their pro tier. But initially their announcement was that Fable, after a little getting to know you period, they were going to move that to API only. And that was supposed to be their like, user nerfed version, which I don't know whether or not that's compute constraint. That's their game plan is they want to move less and less into consumer, and they only want people to be using this for enterprise. But it looks like OpenAI is more along the lines of like that they want you to settle into a pretty beefy but a beefy subscription, but have that be substantial. Like, you are going to be at the free tier, or, you're going to be at a 20, 100, 200.
Give it a comparison. Like Claude Fable, which will, when finally everything gets its way through, and which is the model people played with and had access to, which was like a version of Mythos, the consumer version of Mythos, we'll call it. People loved it. People said it was fantastic, like incredible model, great model, and then got pulled. That is $10 per million input tokens, and the output is $50 per million tokens. OpenAI's model Sol, which they put out as comparable to that, is $5 per input token, which is half the cost of what that is. And, or excuse me, Terra, the model they say is equivalent to, is $2.50 per input token. So that's a quarter of the cost. And then output is $15. So they're like, literally, that's a third of the cost of what Fable costs. If they compare the same, you're just seeing the strategy between those two companies coming out in sort of a different way. One in how they train it, what they do. We know Anthropic has been compute restrained with both inference and training. One of the advantages of having tons of training compute is you can make your models spend longer to make them smaller, or spend more time to figure out how to condense them, et cetera. But Anthropic has been making a lot of compute deals. They're going to try to do what they can to close the gap on that. How bad do we know it was for them? They helped Elon Musk get his over $1 trillion IPO by signing the compute deal of the century to use the Colossus 1 and 2 compute clusters that SpaceX has. And this is Anthropic and Elon have long been on very opposite ends.
They are not. Yeah, they are not aligned. For companies that care a lot about alignment, I would not describe those two as aligned.
So I guess that's another thing that happened since the last Weird Things podcast is SpaceX's IPO happened. They immediately turned around and bought Cursor. Did that surprise you?
Well, they had announced they were going to buy Cursor several months ago, that post IPO they were going to be doing that. And so that was in the cards. And I think it was a strategically very good for both of them, because I think Cursor 4 months ago, 6 months ago, Cursor looked like they could run away with the game. But then once Claude Code got really good and Codex got insanely good, Cursor, all of a sudden the light cone of what was available to them shrank. It didn't get bigger, it shrank. Still possible, but they had two incredible fierce competitors there trying to, one, capture that market for themselves. Their relationship with Anthropic fell apart. Not fell apart, but it got more complicated by that. I think that Cursor announced a model they were using that was their own in-house model, but it turned out it was a Chinese model that had been trained on top of Anthropic tokens. A lot of complicated stuff there. But long story short, SpaceX or XAI had a big talent problem. They could not keep talent. Elon would keep saying the next model is going to be the game changer, and we've been hearing that for 3 different major models. 4.2, remember Elon, like, oh, signs of AGI, and they're like, this is going to be the one. Elon's going to blow everybody away. Narrator, he did it. They just could not keep up. Might be good in some performance metrics, otherwise weren't. Built some capable stuff there. I think their video model for price for what it does is actually really good. I think they've done some neat stuff. I don't think Grok's a bad model at all, but it just was not frontier. They weren't really leading the frontier in any significant way, maybe on a couple benchmarks. So buying Cursor, which has got an amazing team there, a very cracked team that took over a sizable portion of that segment of the market, who's now going to be training their own models. I think the more compute they give to the guys at Cursor, the better.
And how did the IPO go? Did it go about what you'd expect? I did not pay attention to it just because what my guess was, I logged my prediction in the envelope before it happened. I'm like, let me guess, a big skyrocket and then a correction. And I assume that's what happened.
Yeah.
It is currently correcting. It certainly opened gigantic. There's stories today that not only are some of the balance sheet realities kind of becoming clear to the market, but also, some of the bonds that the company is issuing are also kind of not moving at the pace that the company would want. So like, it's it's complicated. It's valued at the number that it's valued because it is being valued like a frontier lab. And I don't think that it's a frontier lab right now. And I don't know if they can get there.
Yeah, they priced it at 135 per share. When it finally became publicly traded, it was traded at 150, went up to 225, and everybody's like, look, great. And then now it's at 152. I would say that well, I'm looking at like the year to date and the report there, but like I have a really strange SpaceX long-term bull case, short-term bullshit case. The data centers in space thing, and I get people who yell at me and like, oh, they bet against Starlink. I didn't. I got all the SpaceX gear. I wanted really hard to get into SpaceX to invest in that because of Starlink. I'm a big believer, but also I spend my time now with people who build data centers and do training model and do this stuff. And I'd say I know more now than I did 10 years ago about any of this. So the data center and space thing, there are two things. One is if you say, oh, we want to go train models in space. It's a big part of a data center is the word center, putting things in that center. If you want to train models in space and you're spreading your compute across hundreds of satellites or more, you're spreading that out. That means the time between getting to each satellite, how much it takes, is significant. Data centers, you want things as close to another as possible. And I will refer you back to Elon Musk unveiling the dojo, where they were going to be doing training for Tesla, of how critical it was to keep your hardware stacked as close as you could, because the more you reduce the trip around the data center, the faster the thing changes. And you have an exponential, you have like a quadratic increase in the time that it takes the further out you move things, because when you're moving things from millimeters to centimeters to meters to hundreds of meters to kilometers apart from each other, and you have to have a packet go around a trillion, not a trillion, but you're having trillions of packets going around by this. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible way to train stuff. If you're using the same hardware put on Earth in one facility, makes more sense. Some people would argue, well, but you're trying to get permits is hard. That's always the worst argument in the world, to say, well, permits are hard. Like, I could build in Mexico. I can find places. We build in places that are nice, that are in nice neighborhoods, close enough, like Abilene, Texas, at low energy costs and close enough to some sort of civilization, because the people who actually have to keep these things running like civilization. But if you're like, I don't care about civilization, the answer isn't go from Abilene, Texas, or from Wyoming to orbit. It's find many of the other places on this earth where we do things like put new hazardous waste or other stuff, or have things. A lot of them are in hot air climates where you can get energy. So it's really this. And if you get, okay, the other argument's the energy cost. The cost per running a GPU is like maybe 2% to 5% of the total cost of the GPU, what you're doing. So it's a fraction of what they're doing. If you're saying, well, I'm gonna reduce that cost to effectively free, but then I'm gonna factor in the tax of putting it into space. It just doesn't make sense to me right now. Now, 20 years from now, like after Starship and we get the successor things that are going up there, we'll also remember too, we have to solve for the logistics of that much liquid methane, all that liquid oxygen, all those other things there for trying to supply the stuff. There's so many complicating factors in there. You're just like, yeah, just get a permit, build a thing, right? So I'm not really optimistic on that. I do think he's going to put 1,000 satellites up there with inference on them, and you're going to be getting, Claude from space or whatever. And he's going to look, it's working. And people are like, look, it's working. I'm like, well, where are you canceling all of your terrestrial contracts for building the new data centers or not? And no, the measure will be how many more GPUs is he ordering or building, and are they being sent into space, or are they being sent on Earth? And I think the answer is going to be Earth for the foreseeable time. That being said,
Hold on. Before we move off of that, I just want to point out, Andrew and I, for the Open AI podcast, did an episode with two of the greatest minds in the world when it comes to chips and protocols for training models. They are working on a new protocol so the chips can talk to each other in the most efficient way possible to train these models as quickly and as efficiently and with as few breakdowns as they can. And so we get to the end of everything that we want to talk about, and then I knew it. Andrew was going to be like, so about these data centers in space, I need your guys' opinion on it. And they were both like very skeptical. Let's put it that way. You can go watch the episode yourself. We have that in the episode. There's a clip that Andrew put on his social media if you want to find it. But I think it boiled down to the best minds with the most money are going into solving these problems. And you still need very smart people replacing very expensive equipment on a constant daily basis. So even if you were able to figure out a lot of the engineering problems in space, you're still dealing with a more expensive way to get replacements and upgrades and keeping the right people in space, in orbit to, make the maintenance on this. Now, maybe that changes and you can, have robotic versions of it. I mean, obviously in a long enough timeline, a lot of things become possible. Right now, at least according to them, highly improbable. And I would not consider either of those guys to be future phobic. They are extraordinarily open-minded about where things can go.
Yeah. Why don't we we're all long-term excited about the prospect.
Yeah.
The challenges I throw out there like this is I think SpaceX is really good at solving space problems. People like, you don't think they can do no, thermal's not an issue to me. You put your radiate the thermal on the back of the solar panel, whatever. There's a lot of the technical things I think they've solved these things before. To me, it's just the first principles problems. When XAI built their first Colossal 1 data center, they built this in record time. They also got the government to come in and say environmental restrictions don't apply to them. It's totally okay that you put all of these diesel generators that they were using or whatever they're running in the parking lot to power it, which was funny because, you go look at Elon doing a talk a year ago about all the solar panels, solar, but when it comes to his data centers on Earth, he has been just using straight up whatever he can get there available. They built it in record time. Then people looked at it and said, man, it was terribly designed. It was really good for doing large training runs, whatever. It literally was throw 100,000 GPUs in there, use whatever sort of networking thing you can to do that. And it's good. And then it turned out like, you can't train a state-of-the-art model on this because it's just not where it needs to be. He's smart. His people are smart. They'll figure that stuff out. But it's also like Justin said was most state-of-the-art data centers right now are really hard to operate, and you need a lot of human intervention. People are like, Optimus, cool. When I see Optimus perform tasks that aren't remotely controlled by a person, I will be convinced that that's likely, or do anything really useful, via remote, which will happen. I just don't think it happens in the time frame that people think that it does. And I'm like, if you ask me where I would be deploying my money right now, I'm like, well, I wouldn't be betting at all on space data centers.
Well, and I would also say I'm here for every advance in robotics, but if you look at like what we are considering to be the top of the line in robotics of like pouring a drink, folding clothes, that kind of stuff, we're a little bit away from replacing millions of dollars in chip equipment with the the kind of stakes that are attached to it in space, in zero gravity. Like these are different and challenging things. Now that being said, I think there is the bull case though, Andrew.
Yeah, and the bull case is that I think that Starship is going to get more efficient. I think that it is going to get cheaper to put things into space. And I think that space research, the things that we're going to be doing that we've talked about on this podcast for over a decade, are going to become much more of a reality. But it's really hard to point to some exotic material. And we're also seeing space pharma, by the way, is really happening. There's certain pharmaceutical stuff that we can make in space. I think that the space pharma, the space materials technology thing is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, while Blue Origin and Relativity and Rocket Lab and other places are doing their best to compete. SpaceX by and far is just a huge leader in there, and I think are going to be at the frontier. And I do think that we might weirdly 10 years out from now see a crazy space economy driven by SpaceX with the space part of it, not because of data centers, but because of other stuff. So, and it's weird because I get in a situation, people want me just to just dump all over SpaceX. I'm like, yeah, I think that idea is not good, but I think this other stuff is actually good, but you can't sell that on Wall Street. It's harder to sell. It's hard to convince people of that. So, we'll see. But do I think it's going to be the fastest growing space company, excuse me, the fastest growing AI company, whatever? No.
Yeah.
It's clearly
I would
not.
I will wait until the lockout period is over and the people internally can sell and everybody prices in everything that's happened. When that happens, I might buy it because I believe in the idea that, like, hey, if you own the railroad to the west, like, a lot of good things can happen. There's a lot of things that you can do to get from here to there. And if you believe that there is a fortune to be made in space, and I do believe that there is a fortune to be made in space, then yeah, I'm going to invest in the tether between hither and yon.
Did you guys?
Yeah, I think
Oh, go ahead.
I'm excited. I think SpaceX is an incredible company. And I know I flummox some people because I'll rip into space data centers. Then I get all these other people like Elon Musk is a scam artist or whatever. I'm like, Elon's complicated. One of the greatest businessmen engineers of our century. I think he's wrong on some things, like, his take on OpenAI. I think he's right on other stuff. And I wouldn't bet against him in figuring out ways to commercialize space. Remember, Starlink came out as a realization one day. He's like, man, I have more capacity for putting things in orbit than there's demand at the moment. And then what if I satisfy that demand with Starlink? I think he wants to rerun that with inference, but it's not like nobody looks at a data center and goes, man, it's so much better to put this in space.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the hotter than a hot tub cooling announcement from NVIDIA?
No.
They announced a new way to cool stuff at data centers that instead of cooling everything down to whatever temperature, they figured out a mix of water and propylene glycol could run everything at 117 degrees Fahrenheit. So a little bit warmer than a hot tub. And that was enough to keep the chips running, which could reduce power by, they say, up to 100%, whatever that means. But, well, I guess the 100% would be in cooler climates. You have data centers in Saskatchewan or whatever, and it's just they're open air cool enough, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money and resources and effort going into this technology. Data centers, as it turns out, whenever you get a lot of brilliant engineering minds on solving these problems and creating efficiencies wherever you can, and also, by the way, like, aided by this tech, that's part of the cool thing about this revolution, is that everybody got smarter because they have the ability to direct this technology and to push themselves harder. I think you're going to get a lot of really cool things. I think we're at the dawning of, Andrew was saying a year ago, he just called me up and be like, age of miracles. Like, I think that we're at the true dawning of that. Like, we're just going to see more and more.
Want to know how I know we're in the age of miracles? When Justin's sitting on my couch showing me the iOS app that he built.
Ha! Well, that couldn't have been possible. This way, what Journey Quest scenario is this happening in?
More than that, I had it physically loaded via Xcode onto my phone. It timed out. Didn't know that happened, by the way. I didn't know that physical versions of the apps timed out. So I used Codex to get it uploaded to test flight and then filled out all the test flight forms so I could then add myself to the test flight thing, and then I could show it to Andrew. So it was even like more than, I not only built it and not only put it on my phone, but then when it wasn't there, I figured out a way to get it back, which again, all of is outside of my my purview. But I think there's just an entirely new class of creation that's kind of coming online, and it's the first time in a very long time since the iPhone that I've seen, like, oh wow, like, I'm having that feeling where the tech I have feels old, and just like it feels older every day, and I need solutions that are meeting where I am now. It's like, you know, coming up with an app and having it compile through Xcode and then uploading it to test flight. Like, these are all steps that were made for a bygone age. Like, they were made for people that were professionally doing this and professionally were going to submit it and list it. I think there's an entirely new class of app that's just going to be things I want. I just want a saved state of a thing that should be alone from other stuff. It should be separate from other stuff. I don't know. It's fun. It's great. Good times.
Sorry, trying to find the right GIF of me begging to send to somebody at OpenAI to get access.
Hey, Brian, you got any picks?
Yeah, I do. I just finished a book that was just absolutely fantastic. Last time I felt this way about a book was maybe Rory Sutherland's Alchemy. Now, Alchemy hit on a bunch of big philosophical points that make you rethink how you think, whereas this book, it's just candy. If you liked the marketing examples from Alchemy and you're like, just give me them dopamine hits of, ooh, that's a clever hack. Ooh, that's a clever hack. Last time I felt this way was when there was a show on National Geographic called Hacking the System. This book is called Just Evil Enough. And it's on Audible, read by the author. Let's see, Audible, Just Evil.
Heinrich Himmler.
Evil Enough. I mean, it's an appropriately cheeky title. But in fact, I wrote myself notes. There's so many good examples. Let me see if I can find one while you guys give your picks.
Mayne, you got a pick?
Yeah, I got a couple picks. By the way, check out the novel The Naturalist by Andrew Mayne, which just got picked up by ABC to put in development for a TV series.
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite series from Andrew Mayne. It's the best. The Naturalist is my favorite character.
Well, thank you, Brian. So the book, it's with some former people who worked on CSI, the producers of the Timothy Chalamet movie, A Complete Unknown, and the Vikings and whatnot. Andrew Karlsruhe will be writing the TV script of it. You know, it's ABC did the press release, which is great. I sent them my bio. They somehow managed to leave out everything about OpenAI or AI. It's fine. I don't know. Maybe Disney's still not, thrilled with OpenAI. Understandable, guys. Understandable.
To be honest, man, I got to tell you, just AI is, and we talk about this all the time, but it's like, if for no other reason than because it diverts 1% of people's attention away from the thing that you're actually saying, I've gotten very careful about using the words AI around anything.
Oh, yeah, no, Brian and I have a new hack. Speaking of hacks, whenever you make something that's people couldn't that you did not have the skills or talent to make, and they're like, oh, how'd you make that? Just respond, magic, if you're gonna be mad about it.
that's the only answer you give.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. We'll see. Again, development doesn't mean it's automatically going to be a series thing like this. This may be the last time or update you ever hear from me. And 5 years later, somebody go, whatever happened to that? I'd be like, yeah. Anyhow, but that was exciting news. It was nice to see that in Variety. And my bio is, if you want to go into an alternate universe where I'm just an author, you can read the Variety article about that in my career as an author. Couple picks. Also, I'll talk about this later when it happens. But saw Backrooms, loved Backrooms, really enjoyed it. By far the best liminal horror movie by 20-year-old you will see in a long time. I really enjoyed it on its own merits. The fact that the director was 20 didn't even strike me. I thought it was very intelligently done. The shots were great, really well done. Thought they found a pretty good story to it. Got progressively weirder and anxiety-inducing. I really thoroughly enjoyed Backrooms. I saw Obsession. Loved Obsession. Thought Obsession was great. That was the 26-year-old Curry Barker who made that, who went to the New York School of New York Film Academy in Burbank, California, just down the road. Probably saw that kid walking around someday. Thought Obsession was really well done. Another really good film. Watched Masters of the Universe. I enjoyed it. I think there is a thing. I look at man, you could spend. There are 6 minutes and a couple spots of this film you could have changed or wrote differently, and I think it would have been a much better film. But
can I ask you this? Because the trailers seemed to show the hints of a decent movie, but it did the thing where it didn't introduce central conflicts to the plot, which I always think is a little bit of a red herring, unless it's like a movie that everybody is going to go see anyway, like Spider-Man or a Marvel movie. But when they started putting out clips closer to the release, one of the clips was like Skeletor doing like kind of a Dr. Evil gag where he's like doing a laugh and he's like no, everybody needs to stop when I'm doing a laugh or whatever, like a very self-aware like meta element of things. And it reminded me a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons had some of that, but it walked it, I think, very well. And this felt to me like, oh, they were trying to do a Dungeons and Dragons kind of like, don't worry, normies, we're not going to just nerd you out here. And I wondered whether or not that took away some of the heft of what should be just an escapist, like, no, there's a skeleton and he's trying to kill you, and a ripped dude is going to stab him with a sword. That's the movie.
That was the first time in the movie. I'm like, man, if I wanted to pull, that was one of them, because I knew they wanted to be. It's hard. I get, and I think Travis Knight's a very capable director, but that was a moment where I go, man, I don't know. So you're saying he's not a threat. So you're saying not a threat, and the downstream effects of that later on, a character dies. And the cause of it is, I'm like, well, this is a stupid reason that they died. It's actually He-Man's fault, but nobody addresses that. And he has zero guilt over it, but he did a thing that caused this. And it's just kind of, then it's like, there's not much weight to it. So the problem is in a moment where am I supposed to be scared of Skeletor or just think he's a clown? Well, if you can tell me he's a clown, then I'm going to treat this whole movie like it's nothing has any weight to it. I would say that I enjoyed it. I mean, very clear. I enjoyed it. I had fun. The characters were likable, great lines, but I just felt like the parts of it were nice. It made me really appreciate, and I've said this before, whether you love the first Thor movie or not, what Kenneth Branagh did to bring into the world of Marvel gods, Asgard, was hard. And I think it was the right kind of film to do that, because the way it bridged that world, because up until then, Marvel was, science heroes. You had Iron Man, who had, mechanical suit. You had Hulk, who was part of that MCU, we forget, but it had, science experiment. Then all of a sudden,
Captain America science experiment.
Yes, Captain America science experiment. And then out pops, Red Skull, more sciencey stuff. There is elements of magic hinted at. And then we get Thor, like, yeah, we're going to go to anything called a realm, whatever. That was really hard. And I loved it. And I thought, I liked Thor. I liked, I even kind of fight Thor. I kind of like Thor: The Dark World in a strange way, but I will not defend it. Ragnarok, I thought, was just great up until that moment of too much Taika, and then Love and Thunder we won't talk about. But anyhow, that was the problem. Was I look at this and I go, you could have given us Ragnarok, but you kind of had to wink at things too much, and winking at it and breaking the fourth wall about it was a bit, made it why I think people kind of like, oh, it's fine, but weren't like, oh, it's great. I didn't walk out of there going like, oh, I need to see, Master Universe 2.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like, oh, I haven't seen this, but it's not bad, Saw that, and then Mandalorian Grogu. Listen, if this had been a Disney Plus movie, we'd be like, oh, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, middle of watchings. What did we just watch on TV? Watch the studio. That was great. And Spider-Man Noir, still delights. Still working my way through there. Really enjoying that.
How far into it are you?
Really like. I think I'm at like episode 4.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's the fully invested moment for me.
Yeah. I really like Nicolas Cage in that. It's just so good. He's just so.
So I haven't really watched a lot of things. We finished The Boys.
Nope. Okay.
I mean, guys, what are we doing? What's even happening? What is happening on the big picture? What's happening on the small picture? What's happening on the fun side? What's happening on the serious side? What's going on? I don't think anybody wanted to be there. I'm glad everybody got their checks. I still have an interest in the universe, but I feel like it needs to be in the hands of people that actually enjoy what they're doing and aren't fighting with the comment section. I did watch 2023 rom-com Anyone But You, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, and that was a delight. I very much enjoyed it. I think both of those people are very charismatic and extraordinarily attractive. And guess what they did? Bantered and got naked the entire movie. And I was like, it does what it says in the tin. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
2 bankable, likable stars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I declare this over.
It's been weird.
Yeah, it's a feeling. Oh, yeah, that's the phrase. I was going to workshop something new till you just stepped all over it, Brian.
Amazing.
All right.
Are we good to roll straight into after things?
Yeah, I just need a quick
Yeah.
break.
We'll do it. We'll do a little reset.
Because we're over 40 now.
Yeah. Here, we'll do one funky whistle. Boo-doo-boo. Boo-boo-boo-doo.
Slide that funky whistle. Slide that funky whistle. Slide that funky whistle.
Hey, friends. It's your old pal, Justin Robert Young. I'll talk to me in the chat and I'll talk back to you.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Tell us your favorite Timmy No Breaks joke verbatim.
Words. How you doing, Sign?
Yo, 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 yo.
How you doing, huh?
All right. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
3.
I'm getting echo.
Oh, it probably is just taking a moment.
I think it went away.
Yeah.
Went away.
Here we go.
All right. Here we go. In 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Mayne, joined by Brian Brushwood
Hello, 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 hello.
and Mr. Justin Robert Young.
Hey.
So, Justin, the other day, and you don't have to get too much into details of it, but you built an app,
Mm-hmm.
an iPhone
did.
app, like actual iPhone app running on iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
You apparently went through and got your Apple developer certification so that you
I
could
did.
deploy things on test flight for testing stuff.
Ooh,
Mhm.
can you invite me on test flight?
Yeah, when it's ready to roll, yeah.
So, how long did it take Ashley to do this for you?
I have a new wife now. Her name is Codex. Yeah. So this has been a journey. I was actually thinking about if and when I would launch it and how I would launch it and a story I would tell. And I was like, oh, you want to know what's cool about this is like I literally could just go into Codex and say, hey, tell the story of how I made this app, and it would know step by step everything that I have done when I started and the dumbest questions that I asked and the smartest decisions that I made. And I could have it break down and give me that kind of archivist lens of it. The app is a high intensity interval training app.
It's a real hit.
Workouts. That is patterned on 2 20-minute blocks, 20 minutes on the treadmill, 20 minutes of floor exercises. And it initially started out as just a thing to see whether or not I could do it. And then eventually kind of became a solution because I've been traveling a lot and I wanted, actually, the thing that kind of broke me was like one day I was out for our company Interdimensional at a training in Dallas, Texas. And we were at this hotel and I was like, okay, cool. I'll wake up early in the morning and I'll go get a Orange Theory workout because I have a membership at Orange Theory. And that was part of the reason why I wanted a membership, was that they have different places all over the country and all over the world. I've taken classes in England. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'll just go do that. And it was just the class that fit with where we were able to do it was like sold out. And I'm like, all right, I need an ability to just always do a workout that I really like and that I can fit in. And I have all these other ideas. So I developed a web app and then eventually pushed it to iOS. And it is a 42-minute audio, all, encompassing thing. It's got its own music. It has coach instructions. It's got a visual guide of what you're supposed to do in terms of changing the speeds on the treadmill or the floor workouts. And so with that and an Apple Watch, I totally recreated what I was doing at Orange Theory, and it has some advantages that I was not a fan of with some of the Orange Theory workouts. And I canceled my Orange Theory membership because this has been a better experience for me. So I don't know. It's been phenomenal. Now, that being said, I am here to tell anybody that actually knows what they're doing with coding that if they were to take a look at the tangled rat's nest of dog shit that I have put together, it would probably look like doo-doo. And I'm sure I have brought shame upon all of the coding gods with my sacrilegious black magic. But I'm having a good time, and it is a thing that I use every day. It's like to the point where Andrew had a really, really good point about a technical backend thing that would unlock a lot of different pathways for the app in the future. And I'm like, I talked to Codex about it, and I was like, hey, I would like to do this. How would we do it? And I had it write a handoff document to begin a process. But I was like, I can't do it in the middle of the week because I got to work out for sure, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like, so I wanted to make sure that I'm going to try and do it over the weekend so I can, so I don't screw anything up. But yeah, it's been eye-opening. Honestly, it's been a tremendous unlock for my life.
Well, if you made sure to back things up on GitHub and you could revert easily, you could have probably done it in 45 minutes.
Okay,
At
sure.
your own pace.
Cool, man. Well, at first I had to commit everything to GitHub, which was the other thing that we talked about. So I did that first, and then look, I'm well aware that I can do things. I don't trust myself to do things correctly, and I wanted to work out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So now we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think don't sell yourself short, because I would tell you that many, many apps in the App Store are often owned by people who aren't super technical, yelling at contractors to go build the thing for them. And if you ask them
Yeah.
how it actually works, they would go, I don't know. I just control the account. Um, you have the ability to now with Codex to go in and say, make a human readable README for me so I can go look at it and understand what the parts do. Go in there, clean this up. So I often do a thing too where I'll just start a new thread and say, go look at the rest of the project. Tell me what it's doing. Tell me what the critical parts are. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now I know. You have the opportunity. You can write better code, cleaner code. I think what you're working on is great because it's not a high. You're not like, I built a banking app, everybody.
Yeah.
Come use it. Although I see people like that. I once went to like a demo day or demo for like a bunch of like would-be entrepreneurs in like LA. And I remember this guy walks on stage, kind of just the hippie head. Literally, I had like a macrame bag on him. He's like, I've got this new currency we should all be using. I'm like, dude, I don't even trust you to wash the windows of my car.
Yeah.
And you have a very, very unaligned view of how people see you and how you want to be seen. That being said, I think that's great. I think that Codex will take you through the steps. You can say, tell me what's going on here. I advise people build a simple thing. Sometimes like, I want to build a thing, and then they've got to deal with role authentication and all these other things that people never think about. And then it gets intimidating and overwhelming, and then they run away from it like a house about to fall apart. But I think that starting off with a very simple thing can be very useful.
Well, yeah, what I've found to be interesting about this process is that technical people think oftentimes, not always, in technical terms. So they look at tools and pathways and say, oh, with this tool or with this pathway, what could I do with it? Right. And then there are more abstract thinkers that are not technical that tend to think like, oh, I would like to do this thing. What tools can I find to make this the reality? And I think the best thinkers in this space, the best are the people that can have a sense of either or of like, okay, I want to have a little bit more blue sky. Here's a pain point in my life. Let me figure it out, but then have the technical knowledge enough to know how to make that happen and what is available, or they're following things enough that they can apply the right tools to do it. I am very much of the blue sky variety. I know what I like to work out. I know that I would like to have it be done for cheaper. I know, because I've been through enough of these workouts, what I like, what I don't like, what I think is challenging, what I think is exciting. And I know for me, the goal is, how do I design a workout that gets me into a flow state to where the next time that my brain thinks of something, it's 30 minutes into the workout, as opposed to talking myself off the treadmill at, minute 2, which is normally what happens if I just jump on a treadmill and say, work out for 45 minutes. Absolutely not. I will talk myself off that treadmill almost immediately. I will not run nearly as fast as I have. And I've done that a million times at Mayne's house, because I've been going out there a lot, and I'll wake up early enough to work out. And then I would jump on the treadmill and I'd listen to a podcast, and I would be off that thing in like 10 minutes. Like, it would not even be the thing. But this time with this app, I was able to get through my 42-minute workout because I designed the workouts the way that I wanted to. But I'm wrapping all the tech around that idea. It's in service of this thing. And I don't know whether or not it's going to be for everybody. It may not be, but it's working for me. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that that's what Codex has given me. I mean, we talked about finance being a thing where, here, how do I justify paying $200 a month for the pro subscription for ChatGPT? You get access to finance, have it pour through your subscriptions, and have it carve out $200 is the answer. And guess what? Codex gave me the ability, it gave me $120 a month back in canceling my Orange Theory thing. And now I can do it anywhere I go, as long as I have a treadmill.
And even if some amount of how well it's working is currently tied in with the novelty of, getting to wield black magic for the first time. And, let's say 30% of your workout is spent like, I can't believe it's working. This is a neat app. Point is, you're on the treadmill and it's working.
Yeah. I mean, I will say a lot of that has kind of worn off. A lot of the novelty of it, in that there was more of a dread of waking up. I got far enough into the project that like shit would break more often than it would work for me. So it's like there was almost a like, fuck this thing. I forgot we don't curse here. But there was a frustration element of it, where it's like, now I'm mostly just tracking it against my zones, my heart rate. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm keeping to the kind of expectation that I have for my own workout. And that was a thing that I had with Orange Theory too. Is just like, they were very metrics focused, which is what I liked about it. And now I like the fact that I not only can do that, but everything goes into my Apple Health, which is plugged into my ChatGPT Health, which means I can know whether or not I should have a bagel after my egg white omelet. The answer is yes.
Oh, now I know.
Mm-hmm.
I started working on a project too. It was interesting in that I'm obsessed with the idea of like tracking, like recording memories when you have them. So later on, you can kind of go back. Oh, where was I? You said, Andrew, what did I do September 22nd, 1987? I have no clue. I couldn't even tell you right now what grade I was in unless I stopped to think about it. But that information's in there in a very unstructured way. And I'm interested in the idea of pulling a lot of memories out there and putting it into some sort of database to then go back and structure it and be able to revisit it. Because sometimes you can look at one thing and then you remember another thing, and you can start to recreate a lot of your own sort of, like, I have terrible autobiographical memory, absolutely terrible. I watched Memento. I'm like, wait, this is not normal. I'm like, I kind of just wake up and go like, oh yeah, look around. I guess that's what I'm gonna do. Anyhow, I wanted to build an app for that. I built many versions of the app for that. But one of the things that's become apparent to me, when you have a tool like Codex, and now, by the way, ChatGPT will do automated tasks. So you can go into your regular ChatGPT and say, every morning in the morning, like at 9 a.m., check my email, right? Super amazing to be able to do that, okay? Simple. It's just literally, we joked that, like, it turned out we didn't need bigger context limits. We just needed what we call cron jobs, which is just checking things in at time to time. Like, that was a big unlock. I built versions of this app, and I figured out a way, by the way, to like build apps that use in-browser models for like speech to text. And I was working on a version of the app, and I'm like, oh, I don't need a lot. I can just use a speech to text inside a web browser, build it as like a web app. And then to save the data, there's a way to just save directly from a web app to Google Drive. And I'm like, oh, I could just build an app that just throws a bunch of stuff into Google Drive, so it's there, in which I trust that. And then for my back end, just use Codex. Just tell Codex, like, every hour, go check this folder. If there's something new, do your Codex magic, process it, add it somewhere else. And that really had me thinking about Codex as your back end, Codex as your API. The idea that a lot of what we're going to now do is just build a front end for getting your data or seeing your data, and then just tell Codex, you just handle it. Not go pay for some service, not pay for something else and do that. And I'm just trying more and more things, some video production stuff. I do a lot of like experimental video production stuff using Codex now, and it's amazing how good it is.
Yeah. So, Justin, to Andrew's point about how a lot of things in the App Store are less robust than you might think, my pick in advance, before we do picks, is there was a Jeff Bezos speech that made it into my X feed. And here, I'll go ahead and paste a link to it. Oh. But it was from 2005, just a week after they announced Amazon Prime. And he was explaining the concept of it in there. But in it, he talked about how a relentless focus on solving simple problems pays off. And the example that he gives is, I forget her name, Mike Nesmith's mom from the Monkees, who invented liquid paper. She was annoyed that she couldn't erase things off of there, and so invented liquid paper. Liquid paper later sold for $46 million. And it's like, ooh, neat. And then he takes a beat, and then Bezos says, it's white paint. And it's like, quite literally, she went to the hardware store, bought some white paint, put it in little bottles, $46 million. So I would say it's white paint inside of your app, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very big believer in context and audience. I think that there's a lot of really, really brilliant thoughts and ideas that wind up kind of just going inert because they don't have the things around them to make them explode. And so there's a million ways that you can put white paint in bottles and nobody gives a rat's ass. In fact, it might get you kicked out of a hardware store. But if you are, but if you understand where things, who needs it, and you find the right people to sell it to now, and you have the right name, now all of a sudden it's a whole different ballgame. So I hope that I know for me, I have solved a problem. And if I were to launch the app wide, I would hope I would solve other people's problems too.
I never heard Bezos use that, but I actually was part of my lecture because of just part of what I looked at it was sometimes you have to see a thing in a different way. And at that time, the idea that you could just paint onto paper over something was actually kind of like part of the big breakthrough, was that she just realized that like, oh, I could, and everyone like, you could do that? And she's like, why not? Because also what made it possible, because Xeroxing and mimeograph had now come about, because you put you write it, and then you make a photocopy or a photostat of what you could do. Then you didn't have the paint on it anymore. And that's a thing too. Like it is like the solution. Yeah, it was paint, but it was now you had permission. She gave herself permission to do this thing. She gave herself permission to say, hey, if I do this, somebody wouldn't have done it 5 years before, perhaps because the photostat wasn't in widespread use and it would have been a problem. But now I think it's a great time to just stop every now and then and go, can I get away with this now? We talked about, Justin, we're talking about YouTube, how, remember Rocket Boom, Brian?
Oh yeah, that's right. Simple news, quick hit, digestible things.
The problem with Rocket Boom pre-YouTube was this web channel. It was a news thing on the web, and what made it a big deal was that you could sit there and calculate how expensive it was to pay for the bandwidth. They had to pay for their own bandwidth on that, and it wasn't quite commercially viable because of the fact you had to get enough advertising and pay. It was expensive. You could measure an hour. Somebody watching an hour of video was probably cost you like 80 cents or 90 cents or something. And when YouTube came out, it broke a lot of people's brains, in mine included, because you're like, well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, they didn't even have an answer, and I don't even think they thought that far ahead. They just had enough venture fund and money to kind of continue the thing on, and that idea of that, like, we'll figure it out. And eventually the answer was the value for that company was super value to Google, and Google just said, well, that's how you pay for it, Google. And I do think that I get locked into things a lot where I feel like I have to have all the answers, and all I have to do is really give myself permission.
Yeah. Anyway, that Bezos speech, he gave it to Stanford Business School, I believe, 2005. That's if you're looking for it.
Yeah. Bezos has got so much great stuff, like his whole, evidence versus
Princeton. Sorry, did I say Princeton? No,
you said Stanford.
Oh, it is. No, it is Stanford. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Stanford. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got such great stuff, and his whole thing about evidence versus argument. Can you put things in a one-page doc and whatnot? A guy that's super smart, solving for logistics, and then doing, what he needs to do beyond that. Like, yeah, I think that's great. I think it's probably well worth paying attention to that. Yeah, I just loved it too, because I look at it as like a permission point of view of just a thing that now, in retrospect, it just seemed obvious, but prior to that, didn't. And then so many things are just, for me as a writer, I was like, do I have to wait for somebody to say, yes, Andrew, you get to be a writer? Brian, did you have to wait for somebody to say, Brian, you get to be a performer, a streamer, a TV personality?
Yeah. It turns out very few people, well, turns out a lot of people will tell you no, but all of them don't count.
Yeah. I'm excited by watching my friends with really good ideas start to build things, because I will tell you this, as a person who spent a lot of time building things, the quality of my ideas for things to build declined the more time I spent building stuff. And often I would find myself, in a new tool or new model or new capability and be like, cool, what are you going to do with it? Like, I don't know. Had you popped out of a time machine 5 years before, when I wasn't as technical, and say, what would you do with this? I would have had 1,000 great ideas. And I think you can go back to being super creative, but I do think we are going to see an abundance of creativity from people like Justin, from you, Brian, of people like this, who spend a lot more time talking to people about what the things they want and understand what needs it in the world, than people who've been too in their head building tools for tools.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Do you guys have picks?
Yeah, I got a pick. So for Father's Day, my wife got me the Apple Watch Ultra. It's big. It has a much bigger battery. So I am not charging it every day, which is very exciting. And it's a lot faster than my previous Apple Watch, and I'm very much enjoying it. I will say this is much closer to the experience that I thought we would be getting with the Apple Watch, several years ago. Now, I think for some people, like the fact that it's as chunky as it is probably would be a reason not to do it, but that brings us back to kind of the aesthetic choices that we make. Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
Yeah, the longer battery life is really good. I'm about 2 weeks into my Aura ring, which is helpful, because I don't like to sleep with my watch at night.
Yeah.
And Aura is a pain in the ass because you have to pay for the monthly subscription. I had the Ultra Human until that died. One of the things I'll warn people about with these rings is the battery life on them. You kind of look at what's going to cost you for the year, and how much is it worth it to you to pay that per year to sort of monitor this stuff, because these things may not last terribly long. But Ultra Human so far, when my Ultra Human died, I'm like, screw it, I'll go with Aura. The Aura ring is a lot smaller. It's a lot thinner, and the sleep stuff, all that's really good so far. It's been pretty good data, so I've been happy with that.
Very cool.
So,
Right.
And I would just, do you have any?
Oh.
That's all I got.
Fine.
Did you not have a pick?
Yeah.
Oh, me? Yeah. No, I started picks. I invented
Oh,
them.
you did?
Sent them back to
Oh, you did.
2005. Had
Oh.
Bezos do a whole
Bezos.
speech about them.
Cool. All right. Well, that shows how into it I am. So,
Liquid paper, everybody. That was his pick.
Yeah, that's
There
right.
we go.
Huff it.
I would, man. Two things. One, anybody out there, hey, are you nervous about maybe trying AI? Maybe you're a little bit, I don't know. Are you a parent that wants to try some AI stuff? We should have pitched some weird things. We'll do this here. Go to helloaiproject.com, and you can get free classes right now. Introductions to ChatGPT, AI and parenting, and more classes to come. Completely free, live classes.
This is a great looking site. I really like it. I'm excited for the project.
Thank you, Codex. It was a lot of Apple early 2000s. No, simpler, colorful. No, simpler.
Yeah.
No, this is terrible. You've made it worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to be adding more classes. We're going to be, putting more stuff in. We have this goal. We want to teach 1 million people how to use AI.
Love it. That's great.
That's it.
Beautiful. It's been after.
It's been after.
Nailed it. Beautiful. All right, beautiful people in the chat. I'm shutting off the stream. Goodbye.